Mm. Mm. Dobry wieczór Państwu. Good evening. Hi, god kväll. Dzisiaj będziemy już kontynuować po raz któryś temat takiej trudnej sytuacji rodzin. 29. Koronawideokonferencja Norweskiej Polonii o trudnej sytuacji rodzin i dzieci migrantów w czasach zarazy. Gdzie i jak szukać pomocy. We have an honor to have Samina today with us. She is a specialist for those topics and issues regarding the family and children's situation in Norway, but also like especially children of migrants. So today we are going to discuss this topic in English maybe. I haven't decided what's the most appropriate language, but since not everybody understands Norwegian, or Polish, right? So English might be our common language.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Samina. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Samina, we've been working together a couple of years now, actually. I don't know.
Yes.
Even
4 years?
4 years and even before, right? So we've been working on behalf of this migrant population in the municipality of Oslo as representatives for different groups of migrants. You were or are a representative for region of Asia, right?
Yes.
Maybe the biggest population migrants in Norway altogether. And I was the representative of the region of Europe, Turkey and Afghanistan. So let's us introduce our work we were doing together with other colleagues for many years, just to establish some rules about the care system for families and children. Right. So tell us, what are you working with? What's your professional background, and how are you developing those lines or directions for those migrants who are actually living and working here, and they are 1/5 of the population of Norway. By now, 20% of population are migrants, but they're not aware of many things, right, Samina?
So my professional background is I'm a translator. I've been translating for more than 25 years, exactly 29 years this year. And I have lived in Norway for more than 45 years. So I'm almost born here, but I am not born here. And through my profession as a translator, I'm also, how to say, a salesperson. I have a profession, I was in sales before. The translation was a part-time, but then it became the first job. And in all of these years, I met a lot of interesting people. And whenever I went to translating, I somehow always ended up in the barnevern. I was the barnevern translator.
Like child system.
The child protection services. Yeah. And as I became more and more familiar with the system, I also discovered a lot of lacks, understanding of culture, the difference, upbringings, values, religions. It's a big issue, especially because
especially for Poles.
yes, and I know for a fact, even though I'm an Asian. I'm from Pakistan originally, but I know that Polish people, they are a major group of users of child protection services, and also this group is in a bit of clinch with the Norwegian system.
Why? Why?
Yeah. Why? I think it's. I think sometimes because I now have a company with 45 consultants from all different countries.
Amazing.
Just helping families that are in contact with barnevern. And this company I started due to all of my experience as a translator and seeing that we are missing a link to understand each other.
Mm.
You know, I think basically, and I might just provoke somebody on your listeners, but I think that the Barnevern, the Child Protection Services, it's a good thing. But
Yeah, it is.
good
Okay.
people can make mistakes. You know, everybody can make mistakes.
Sure.
So the problem, I think, is about communication and
Mm.
also lack of trust. It's a lack of trust on both sides.
Between Norwegian officials, well, the government, Norwegian institutions, and Polish families, right?
Yes. It's due to some severe cases, because obviously Norwegian authorities have done something wrong, because otherwise they wouldn't have been pursued in the EMD, the human rights courts in Hague.
Yeah, like
And
30 different cases there, right?
yes, and due to all those cases, and not all of them are Polish, it's several other countries and Norwegians as well. You know, the biggest case in EMD was a Norwegian mother. So it's not always that they do they do something misunderstandings, or call it mishappening just to the minorities. They in fact do that with their own people, you know.
Right.
But I think on 80% of the work that the child services do is helping, really genuine help to get betterment in the family's life, helping parents. You know, we have cases like not only violence, but drugs, psychological issues. You have poverty. There are so many issues.
They even have parenting, right? Like learning how to become a good parent, right?
Yes, and due to that work as a translator and me starting a company, I also have 2 certification of parenting courses. They are psychological education programs. How to become a good parent, how to take care of your child emotionally. You know, emotions are the core values or the core basis of a human being, but also maybe the one thing that all humans struggle with. You know, how to balance emotions.
It's difficult sometimes for all of us, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, because we are all born with emotions, you know, and how to regulate them in certain certain situations is the key to being a good human, and also a key to being a good parent.
So what the problem is, especially nowadays during this pandemic situation, is that even those emotions are becoming even stronger and more difficult, because we are so isolated and we are living in the hidden kind of areas, right? At home, we are living our lives like if we were totally trapped sometimes, and that was the main problem for most of the families in Norway. That during the close down, they were not allowed to even get out, right? They were providing like school lectures and so on. Everything was going on in the private sphere at the home. And in many cases, unfortunately, those children were suffering severely. But no one could interfere, because it was like in private homes. So there is a special situation we are witnessing now, which I made like a type of our topic today is a very difficult situation of migrant families and their children.
Most definitely. I don't think the COVID situation has helped anybody. Not only migrants, but people struggling. You know, people are being isolated, or elders are being isolated. People with mental issues are being isolated. Children that are living in abusing home. Everybody that are struggling are kind of struggling double now, because obviously for people who need help, like from the system, being a doctor, being the health services, being any other services as NAV, you know, everything is kind of, you have to just, first you have to have a good knowledge of IT. everything is digitalized. Not everybody is able to handle a computer or handling all these modern systems. So obviously you feel a frustration, and also not being able to meet people, not going out to live about your life as you usually do. A big or small things, it makes a difference that you can wake up in the morning, do your makeup, freshen up, take a shower, and go out and say hi to somebody. So obviously that has been a very severe psychological effect on the whole of society. But I think that is what a pandemic is about. The whole world is learning to live in a new way.
We are all under kind of unusual stress, long-lasting stress. Nobody even knows how it will end up and when we will be like done with Corona. And we are all experiencing, no matter what age or place in the world or whatever nationality, tremendous insecurity, right? And especially children, I think.
Yeah.
Because children are those human beings who are most vulnerable. They don't have life experience. And this is like a completely new situation, which they never faced before, not even their parents. So what is happening with those children and the parents, young parents?
Well, I can just talk of experience for the work that we do. In fact, Norway closed that 13th of March this year, and it was very hectic. For us, for me, and all my consultants, we have families that we follow up. It means that we have to go visit them weekly, maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. So when the pandemic or when the restrictions hit in 13th of March, we had to sit down and make some hard choices. And the choices that my company and my consultants made, that we are like the arrow of the society, visiting, feeling, touching their lives, Yeah. So for us, we were few of the workers in social sector that, along with the police, along with firefighters, with health workers, we chose that we will not sit at home. We had some families that were in a very vulnerable situation, and it was not at all good to just leave them.
And by the way, you were also doing fantastic work with promoting all the, one of the first people in Norway promoting the special information about Corona itself.
Yes. So I have not mentioned, but I am also deputy chair in the Directorate of Health. And I'm sitting in the group that has all the users of health services. So I represent them, and especially the minorities. So my first prioritization, I remember I was sitting there, it was hectic when the Ministry of Health just went on telly and told, from 5 o'clock today, nobody's going anywhere. So I was present at the directorate, and we sat there. It was we called it a Corona task force. And I was called in, and I was very fortunate. I considered myself very fortunate to be there at that place. And immediately everybody was thinking how to communicate with the Norwegians. And my thought was, yes, how to communicate with the minorities, because they are vulnerable. People who don't understand Norwegian need to get that information, that important information, how to behave, what not to do firsthand.
The whole language
in the same time as the majority gets the. So I have been very fortunate. I consider myself fortunate that I have been positioned in such a place, which I think I'm a bit proud of this. And you, Edith, you are also my chair in that group.
Wow,
so together we have done some great work, and I am very grateful that we have had the opportunity to do so.
It is important. And no matter what and whenever, but you're doing fantastic job for all the minorities, and I'm so proud that I'm your chair, and and that I give I get information from you, like first-hand information right away, just like minutes after it's been decided. So we can, at the Polish community in Norway, we can promote it before everybody else will get to know what's actually going to happen, right? So we're almost predicting the near future. And this is a very valuable experience because especially, this is the digression, this week there was so much in media, all the mass media, about Poles importing the infection, right?
Yeah.
So we are combating this thing as well as we can, thanks to the information from you, because you were the first one who actually gave the kind of clue.
Yeah. And I hope together, I hope that this one thing is that we are all fighting the COVID together. It doesn't matter which nation we are, where we are, who we are. The COVID doesn't see the difference between our color or religion or whatever. So I think the most important work that I prioritize, and all of the people in the Directorate of Health, the ministry, is that you should not stigma any particular group.
Right.
It's unfortunate. Sometimes it's the Norwegians, sometimes it's the minorities, but it
Sometimes
does not.
sometimes Poles, right?
Yes. So it's important to keep a pragmatic view and don't kind of point a finger. All those people are people, and this COVID, it's here to stay. We all have to do some measurements. We have to do our part of the work so that everybody can live safe and go back to the life. And by the way, I don't think we will ever go back to the life as it was, because we are learning a new normal. So I think it's important to
adjusting, right? We're adjusting back.
Yes.
Can I add something?
Yes.
We all know you as a great, the biggest expert in
childcare system,
in different minorities in Norway. But do you deal with differences between other minorities and Norwegian society, or between all others? So, in other words, do you compare differences between Polish and Norwegian society, and, for example, Ukrainian and Norwegian, Chinese and Norwegian, and so on, or between Polish and Chinese in Norway as well, or between Polish and Ukrainian in Norway as well?
Of course, it's important to not generalize any group of people. I'm a Pakistani. I am sure that I am also a different from my mother. Even I'm a different person. You and Edith are Polish. You guys are Polish. That is the common thing. But you are individuals. You are like two different people. So whenever we work in a family, we don't say, okay, Polish. Of course, we have some general ideas, maybe about the religion. We make sure that we know if they are living in the city, do they have education, what kind of background. That's just the basis. But we have to treat them as an individual. Everybody that we meet.
I agree. But anyway, you must agree that if we are talking about Norwegian people, we can all consider them to be a little bit slow comparing to Polish people, for example, or Chinese.
That's your opinion.
I don't exaggerate. You may consider them, and when you compare them, for example, to Cuban people, Latinos people, A few years ago, I met a couple in the center of Oslo, a Cuban girl and Cuban wife, and a Norwegian husband. So very, very hot and fast girl and very, very slow man.
By slow, do you mean a bit cold and a bit?
I think slow.
Distance.
Slow in
in
a way of behaving, in
Yeah.
a style.
Like with phlegma, right?
What is important in your job, in your profession, to compare Norwegian people in Oslo or in Norway with other nations, or you sometimes compare different nations that are in Norway? What is more important in your job?
Well, in my job, honestly, I don't generalize. It's important because otherwise I can't do a good job. If I go in a place, in a home, and I think all Norwegians are cold, or I think all Polish are beating their children, or Pakistanis are beating their wives, I wouldn't be able to do my work, you know? So
So not
I
practical.
actually treat everybody, every family that we meet, every child we meet, I have to start with a clean slate, you know? And by knowing them, I am coloring that slate, you know? It's the colors of their personality that tells me where I should work, which area I should focus. The conversations that we have, I get to know their mental state, you know, their emotional state, and by that I work with them.
Wow.
Mhm.
How how interesting, because you are like working in like entire spectrum
Yeah.
of human emotions in like different cultural contexts, and this is your specialization, by the way, because your firm has a name Kulturtolken, so you are basically breaking those codes, cultural codes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Translating into Norwegian way of living,
yeah.
and
The
vice
thing,
versa, right?
so the thing what we do in our company, and why child protection agencies choose to hire us. Firstly, they hire us in high conflict cases, you know,
Very high.
where, for instance, the authorities have long time tried, and then they can't get to the people. They don't get the thing. And before they want to do something drastic by maybe taking the kids or whatever they are in a process, they take a telephone to us, you know, okay, we have a problem. It's so and so and so and so. We need to communicate with these people. We need to know how they are. And that is our job. So the thing that we have an advantage of is looking like this, you know, because whenever I go to a, for instance, say I go to an African home, I'm not African, but I always look for what we have in common, you know.
That's
a,
very
a common could be if I have a religion that is similar to theirs, you know. Something common could be in cultural context. And I must say that I have worked with people from African continent, from European continent, Asian, Americans, South Americans, South Asians. The only thing that I am sitting as I have a thought of this, you know, my hypothesis, my thought of how humans are. I think that actually all humans have a desire to be loved, to be acknowledged, and I think everybody is struggling. That is the main. We want to be loved, and we want to be taken care of, and if we meet those emotions in whatever human we are looking in it, we are also able to give love back.
You know, this is going to be kind of digression again. I went once to China, actually not once but twice, and different types, different period of time. But it was an organized trip. I was just on my own, along with my husband, and we were forced to communicate with Chinese people in Chinese only, right? Because there were no translators or guides. No. And surprisingly enough, we had to find like a common way of communicating with those people living there, because we're actually trying to use emotions, and it wasn't so very difficult. We could actually make contact, right? Connection.
Make a connection.
Yeah, without words.
Sometimes I recently had I can tell you something from experience. I recently went to a family from Ghana.
Right.
Now I can be so honest and say that I don't know much about Ghanese culture, you know. I know they are from the African continent. I certainly don't speak their language, but I'm never actually nervous to go in a family which I don't know the culture about, because I think that if you meet them with respect, you know, we have a difficult job. They know we are representing the Barnavan, and they're afraid of us, and they're like, we don't know what kind of people are coming into our house. But the first meeting is the most important to establish how this work relationship is going to be. So my focus is always to be humble, to be listening, and to try to understand and make them understand that, in fact, I'm coming in your home and my team is coming in your home, but our goal with this child protection services is actually to make a stable environment for your children. And then I'm also honest. I tell them that I will work with you with any issue, but what I will not work with you is if I kind of under my my period with you have a thought that you are not doing good things with your children, because I actually work for the children. I don't work for the parents. My clients are the children, and those are the one I have chosen to protect, but a child is the parents are the way to a child. So if you want to change in a home, you can't change the child, but you can change the adults.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So very, very wise word.
Yeah.
Samina.
How do they react when they see you for the first time? For example, when you entered the house of this family for the first time, do you remember their reaction?
Yes.
Are they
yes,
afraid of you?
so many cases. They first look at me, they give me this, this glare. Oh, the lady from the child services. Oh, we have to be careful. That's like the couple of 10 minutes. It's like this. They show that we're not sure about you, but then the ice breaking every time is if we tell them that and I'm telling them the honest thing. I'm not making up a story that I am not the child protection services.
No.
I am a person like you. I work for them, but my job is to come here and maybe make some changes. And the best changes that I can make is that if you cooperate with me, if I will respect you, tell me what is your issues, and I will make changes. I will listen to you, and I will not do anything that you don't agree with.
Catalyzed kind of.
Yeah, I'm a catalyzer, right?
Catalyzer.
Yeah, I have to channel the positive things,
right,
and focus on the positive things they have, because I also never believe that nobody has a potential. Everybody has a potential, but you have to find the right person to stimulate that one thing that makes the change. And I am really lucky that I have my company has worked now for 5 years, and for that 5 years, I think if I talk in terms of percentage, I think we have not lost one child. Maybe 99% of our cases are in terms of children living with their parents at home.
How nice. Fantastic.
Yes,
So
that's
not what we hear about Barnavan.
I think it is the answer for a question I wanted to ask, but let me ask it now.
Yeah.
Since I came to Oslo, to Norway, almost 6 years ago, and I started working as a film producer, I was invited many times to the center of Oslo to participate, to take a part in the demonstrations against the Barnevernet.
Yeah.
I recorded many films in this place, and I've got many friends who suffered from Barnevernet, or they told me about Polish people, especially Polish people who suffered or could suffer from Barnevernet. And now tell me, convince me, because I suppose they may contact me after this program. Probably some of them may watch us now live, and I suppose that they will ask me about you. So you've got now possibility just to explain or convince Polish people, especially those people who still are afraid of Barnevernet. I think it is very important, because when I'm talking to you and I hear what you are telling, all the stories that you are telling us, it is quite different from the picture which is in my mind. You
Okay.
understand.
So the first thing which is I have to say to all of your listeners and your viewers is that the stories that you hear in the media, I am most certain that something is right. You know, you can't make a big story without something truth in it.
Mm.
The downside of such stories is that
Mm.
rules and regulations in Norway, they
Mm.
are very strict when it comes to the government services or the government. For me, who work as a government service, I cannot talk about any case. You
No.
know, I could I have given this oath of silence, which I cannot break
So
No.
you are
before the
it is
family
forbidden, yes?
releases me from that.
No.
Okay,
So
so
you
in
cannot
media you can
report.
only hear the one side, and of course,
Mm.
I'm a parent. If I lost my child, I would probably be one of those going to the papers and saying whatever I was saying and feeling,
Mm.
you know. But if in terms of professionalism, if you ask me, I would say that again,
Mm.
that 80% of the work the child protection services in Norway do is to help people.
Yeah.
And then about the Polish people, if I may just continue.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
it's about misunderstandings.
Mm.
It's also something that you assume, the state government entities. When
Mm.
you go there, as I told you before, when I go there, I never assume anything. I, of course, have some background information, but I choose to start with a white paper, you know, and then they will tell me what they think. Okay, and then maybe I will go back to the Barnavand and then ask, okay, I heard this.
Mhm.
What's your side of the story? Exactly. And then I'll get both sides of them. And then I'll be honest with the family and I will tell them. For instance, if I have a family which I am worried, which the child protection already has told me, we are so worried, we don't think the children will live here. So you go and talk with them, you give us an assessment, you work with them and come back to us. After 6 weeks, I have I have the whole picture kind of, where I need to work, or is it workable, or is it a dead end, you know? And
Mm.
as I'm telling you that I have, my company has almost 80% of our cases is what we called in the paragraph 412. 412 in the child protection services
Uh-huh.
law is taking the child. So
Yeah.
whenever we get an assignment, it's about that. It's
Yeah.
either they can live there or they can't.
So
So
you're basically working on not like preventing it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Actively
So
preventing that children will be taken out of their homes and their family.
yeah, but I have to also be honest and say that
Mm.
as I told you, I work for the child. So if the environment is toxic,
Yeah.
I can't keep them in home
In
because the child has to be protected. If I have a parent who drinks, doesn't care, if I have a parent if there is a sexual abuse, if
Mm.
there is violence that can't be done anything about, you need to move out the child. But moving out the child does not mean that the child cannot come back. You know,
Right.
a basic rule in child protection services is that for the protection of child you should move out the child if the situation is so, but the law says
Mhm.
that within a limit of time you have to again and again and again look at the situation if it is possible for the child to come home. And that is where we have failed. I think that is where the child protection services or the law has failed. It's like, okay, we've taken the child, all right, they are living good in foster care, which they are in many cases, but the biological connection is the strongest connection in
Yes.
human lives, and
Yes.
unfortunately the biological principle has been ignored uh, in terms of understanding and interpreting in the law, and
No.
that is why Norway has been
Mhm.
had so many cases in EMD, and that is also why Norwegian law, the Child Protection Agency's services law, has now changed. Now the law says
it's changed to the better for the families.
yeah, now the law is
Right.
if
What
you're
does it
taking
mean?
out a child.
What does it mean now? It has changed all 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. But
Already, yeah.
the implementing of it is actually affecting now.
So
It takes time. Now the courts must consider, did the parents get any help? Did they get any education? Did they get any courses? What did the Child Protection Services do before they took out the child? That was not the case 3 years ago.
No. Because the state was just like acting like with no actually, how shall I say? Respect for the biological.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is that now also in the courts you have the county board, fylkesnemnda. They are the one who decide. They are the first step, right? But now you have a process called dialogue process. Before you went to the court, the state had their case, the parents had their case, and then the judges did it. Did the decision making, right? Now, in many cases, it's a rule that you come to the court as it's a court case, but nothing is to be decided. You have to go in a dialogue. The parents and the Child Protection Services have to meet to do dialogue, find solutions. And if there is a itty-bitty, inchy-binchy possibility, you should work on that before considering moving a child out. So the law has changed and the implementation is coming. It's not coming fast enough for the people who have suffered, but I think it's a positive change coming now. And also, when they get people with other minorities, with cultural knowledge, with religious knowledge, with other thoughts, the migration,
right?
Yeah.
So it is a process still.
It's a slow process, and unfortunately for the Polish people, many families have been hit by that. But for those people, words, it's just empty words, because they've been living with a lot of pain. But I would still like to say that for people who are struggling, who may be thinking that the Child Protection Services, I can't go to them, my advice would still be, go to them, talk with them. And
because there's some good things to get from there as well.
Yeah.
Not just like this, they're taking children out of the homes and from parents and replacing to complete the new families and so on. But actually, for instance, if there is a single mother with 3 children, struggling, of course she's struggling economically because they may be under the poverty kind of level. She's struggling with giving them a good spare time or free time, and she's struggling because she's so exhausted, so tired, because she never has any time on her own. So actually she can go there and ask for kind of help for childcare at least once or twice a month, right? So she would be able.
The Child Protection Services have a lot of they have offers. They have you can go and talk with them. For instance, if you're a single mother, single parent, if you're struggling with a long time illness, you can ask for support. You can get a visitation home. You can get støttekontakt, which is a support person. You can get Barnevern would ask NAV to support them economically so they could have activities,
It's life, right?
Yeah.
I have to ask, sorry for interrupting. I have to ask something, Edith. Imagine single Polish mother with a child who suffers from illness.
Yeah.
Can you imagine her for calling to Barnevern to get help?
No. Never.
Never. But
if any of my friends, since now, if any of my friends have problems with Barnevern, I will give them telephone number to you, Samina.
You
Yes,
can
you're
give
the
my
missing
number, but the thing is that I can only work when a Barnavan contacts me, right? That's what I'm thinking, that people should not be afraid, should
Mhm.
actually think that I have the law on my side. As
Mm.
long as I am honest, life is not about being perfect. No,
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who has a perfect life.
Mm.
So if you identify your problems, and
Mm.
if you are able to identify them and think, okay, I have a problem, I think the solutions would come. But we are all humans and we struggle with emotions, mostly we struggle for that part that I don't have any problems. Sometimes the first conversation that I have with parents is in fact on that issue. Yeah, what are your problems? No, we don't have any problems. I
Yeah.
don't know why you're sitting in my home.
That's
And
fine.
then, yeah, everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Mm.
So you have to go beside the facade, you
But
have
do
to
they
go.
actually keep smiling as well? No. You can see from their faces that have a
Yeah,
sound or something undermining, right?
yeah. It's all about body language. It's about the world.
Mhm.
It's also about in the environment you live in. When we go into a home,
Mhm.
it tells you a lot about the person living there.
Mm.
So there are lots of clues.
Yeah. What would you say about me now living home for
I'm just
home
seeing
office?
I'm just seeing an office thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the purpose, right?
It, it, it's it's at least tidy, Edith.
Yeah. Yeah. But back to our topic today. How during this special time we still have? Shall we go on for 15 more minutes because we have such a good conversation? Is it possible for you? We started like a little bit late.
Yeah, it's
So
all right. Yeah.
I asked you, or I sent you actually a couple questions, right? So what? Like one of the issues that I'm very interested in is because of course there's so much talk about working migrant families. They're not getting Norwegian courses for free. They are living like in very tiny apartments. They are working very long hours. Their working conditions are not so good, and they are really struggling, right, to establish their lives here, especially with children as well. So there is a lot of kind of hidden poverty because they are too proud to like show it. And what is actually happening in the families of migrants with very low income, I'm sorry,
Income.
and those tiny houses, and especially during this total social isolation because they're experiencing like double isolation. They're not having network of any friends or families, grandmothers, grandfathers. They're living in a foreign country. Everything is like scary here, especially when they're like uh, losing their jobs, right? Because many of them lost their jobs because of the corona pandemic. And what about the children? Are they actually more like exposed for family, the old domestic violence because parents are struggling so much? And is it possible to like cure it or to prevent it or like help? There's not.
Yes, to the first question. The
Mm,
domestic violence has increased.
mm.
For the statistic says that for the past 6 months it has increased
So it's a
because
fact,
uh,
right?
yeah,
Because of
because
coronavirus, of
imagine,
course.
Mm.
yeah, for the child, but also for spouses, for marriage. For instance, if you are already struggling in a normal way
Yeah.
before COVID, you could find some help outside. Being a woman, being a child, you go to the school, you
Mhm.
tell the school, you tell Barnahage, you tell anybody you meet,
You can be
you know,
supported.
you have a support system. But now, because due to the COVID, the support system is cut off. You
Yeah,
don't have you don't have a support system.
it's
So
done.
yeah, imagine children living with parents that drink. Imagine children living with parents that become very full of rage. you
Big
know
smokers.
yeah, imagine children taking care of their parents because they are sick or they are mentally ill. So all of these cases, all of these issues have indeed increased.
Oh my
And
God.
due to COVID, the healthcare system is just focused on COVID. You know, people with severe diagnoses are being held in a line because you can't go to the hospital. NAV cannot help you. Nothing is open in the way it was. So
But
of
they're
course,
basically, left to themselves, right?
yes. So the police is struggling. You know, there are so many domestic violence cases now.
Really?
Yeah. Cases of,
Explosion. Yeah.
yeah, and especially within the not some of them, of course, are child abuse, but most it's the domestic violence between spouses, between husband and wife,
Mm.
and which also affects the children. You know, if you have a child in that marriage, of course, it sees, it hears, it feels the way both parents are. So the answer is yes, definitely.
They have a sense of guilt that
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
exactly. And
There is no cure at it, because you asked me if there is a cure or a solution. The
no,
solution is, for instance, now we are in a second wave in Norway, right? So due to the experience and whatever we learned, for the first time we closed society.
Mhm,
It is now most countries,
mhm,
at least in Europe and Western countries, they
mhm.
don't close the school because we all prioritize the children.
That's why you don't close this, or no,
That's why we don't close the school, because the children need to have a place to go to.
yeah, free space, right?
Yeah, that they need that place because that is their own safe heaven. You
So
know?
there's a calculated risk of actually still getting the coronavirus because of like the worst case. Actually, for children, everything will be closed, shut down, right?
Yeah,
So,
because it increased, the domestic violence increased in many percentage. For the 2-3 months that we were closed totally, children were really, you know, there are probably coming some statistics now in by the end of this year, which is not looking good.
No, I imagine.
Yeah.
There's one more like dimension to it for the special Polish families, because you know the institution of grandparents, especially grandma, is really like in a high stake in Poland, and for many months, those Polish children of Polish families, they were like isolated for the loved ones in Poland, which are actually doing the job of the parents, because children in Poland, they are quite often being raised by grandparents because parents are working so much. Probably the same situation is occurring in other countries like your home country, right?
Yeah, we all live in
very important for grandchildren, right?
Grandparents are they are a resource. They are sometimes the strength, the pillar in the family.
Exactly.
You know, in terms of also conflict. If you have an elder in your home, your conflict will stay down out of respect. You know, just and so I think that having elders in their home, it is a prevention in itself.
Very healthy.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I was personally raised by my grandma and even old mother, right? Because my parents were medical doctors working such a long hours. I can't imagine how the life is for those children who are like for 8 months without any chance for other contact with their grandparents. Other than
there is also some other aspects for the COVID which are very, how to say, difficult now, because we've all been living more than 6 months in COVID now. People are getting tired. You know, this social isolation, marriages. And marriages is something that people are engaged about. Any culture, if there is a planning of a marriage, they all go bonkers. You know, they need to plan, and it needs to be big, and it needs to be grand. That obviously is very difficult now. The second biggest issue is death. Death is something we can't plan. You know, it just happens. And
all deaths are
Yeah, and unlike marriage, it's not a happy thing. So emotions are double strong. You know, people struggle. We have had cases which I've heard about in Director of Health, where people have parents died with cancer, diagnosed with sugar, diabetes, and they just died. They could just hold their hands, and they were not allowed more than one in a room. So all this, you know, people live in
Morning,
other
right?
cultural contexts. In Pakistan, I think Poland, many countries, we want to be together in big numbers as families. You know,
Yeah. Stick
having
together, right? Because we feel more
Have,
secure.
have you
Yeah.
heard about a guy who died because his wedding was cancelled and
No.
bride had double trouble?
It must be a joke. Yeah, right.
Double trouble because
double trouble. Yeah,
Yes,
didn't have the wedding and didn't get the funeral. Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah,
Almost went.
Anyway, it is black joke.
yeah. It's
Yeah, but there's something inside it. Really, people,
Yeah.
people who plan wedding may be disappointed and angry.
By the way,
I had my daughter's wedding cancelled. They had the wedding planned in September. So now we have moved it to June, and
June.
now
Yeah.
we got this news yesterday that the corona pandemic is definitely going to be here around June. And she was just telling me, "Mama, what shall I do?"
Can they wait that long?
No, I don't think they can wait there long. So they'll just have to do whatever. I think we have to accept the reality. We have to accept that we can't meet in big numbers anymore, but small numbers can do the same. You know, you have to feel the love, I think.
One more question, because
Yes.
it's regarding both your people, our people, or all the people who are living abroad, right? So, what is the role? What should be the role of the NGO organizations and migrant organizations to, like, in order to help those families to get better life under such extreme conditions, and where the world is not the same thing it used to be for 8, right?
Yeah. In our county, Edith, in Oslo, we have 300 migrant organizations, as you know.
Exactly.
So most of them, and I myself am I have an organization beside my company. You have an organization. So most organizations, they are doing charity. They are gathering money and sending it to people in need.
Yeah.
And of course, all ethnic groups are doing it for their own ethnic groups.
Sure.
So the majority of minorities are helping their own people in their country by giving and sending money from Norway. I think that is the best way we can help right now. That we are all, even though in pandemic, we are very lucky to live in Norway. We have good social systems. Most of us have money.
Because
So-
we should overcome always, right?
Yeah.
Believes, like from the third world countries, that in Norway there's actually the theme of poverty is like in their countries is being viewed like we are.
And I don't. And when I say charity, it's not charity only in terms of money.
No.
You can send blankets. It's winter now. Poland is a cold country. My country is a cold country. So we have to think broader than just money. You can send ship things, clothes, shoes, a lot of things, food, dry food.
You're
Right?
right.
So you should gather people, gather the NGOs, and send things, because obviously they can't come here and we can't go there.
Exactly.
But the airplanes are doing. In fact, the airplanes, everybody is doing double trouble with they're increasing their cargo, because cargo is the thing now. So you can always send things.
I see. Right.
Important to be aware that you could help by not also being there, you know.
Of course, I remember for 40 years ago, Poland was under the martial law.
Yeah.
Everything was closed. People were really striving, and they were suffering. They didn't have anything to eat. Just what was it at the shelves at the stores? There was just like I don't know, some things not to be eaten, and we were sending a lot, like trailers and everything from Norway, especially Caritas, of course, but other organizations as well, because people survived this terrible time due to help they received from abroad, and not to mention medicines as well. And this is very strange that you're actually mentioning it right now, because for like an hour ago, we just from our organization, we just decided that we are going to try to get some hospital utilities in order to help elderly and sick people at kind of hospitium, because in Poland you don't have really like elderly care like in Norway. Those people are suffering so much. So we actually organized a way of transportation and now looking for different ways of getting this equipment, which is going to be thrown out or something, right? So people need our help, our charity. They need our
And I think it's a good advice would be that you should also get in touch with NGOs in your own country, so that you could cooperate with them, make sure that people get the things, because obviously you're not there. So you have to make some partners that do the delivery, because we make sure that the right people are getting, like for instance, now we have a lot of Facebook groups. Pakistanis have a lot of Facebook groups, and then they say, okay, one person, somebody can put something on, this mother and father have a son which is suffering for cancer. Please send me VIPs. You can just VIP me. What they do is that they show the picture of the family. They do the recording that this is the family, we are giving the money. They're documenting that it is happening. So it's important in terms of charity to make sure that the receiver is needy. So document whatever you are doing, because then it will help you. By once, if people get the idea that you're just gathering money and not getting it done, then they won't be helping you.
And by the way, how is it with the child poverty in Poland? There are many poor families, right? Very many. We don't hear about them because this is like typical for Polish people. They're very proud and not showing their weakness. They not showing, and they not wanting everything from the government, because it's not a tradition, and they really hiding how bad the situation sometimes really is, when they don't have enough to eat even, right? So that's why same situation might be going on in Norway, because in some Polish families, we know for sure there is a level of poverty that is, beyond the imagination, but they never kind of complain, because it's in their culture. I don't complain. I don't show it up because I'm too proud, right? I don't want to show it.
But poverty is an issue in Norway.
Yes.
Norway is one of the most richest country in the world. But this society is slowly becoming a two divided society. One which is living filthy rich, and the other which is living barely. I can't say they are poor, but in terms of standards in Norway, they are hitting the survival rate, And social services, they are blown out. Also because of the COVID, but also before COVID, we are increasingly having families that are living beneath the standards of Norway. For instance, my families, which I work with,
starving even.
Yeah, starving. But the families that I touch upon, my company, the main issue is poverty. They live in bad places. They don't have enough space. Big families are just like hurdled in a house. They don't know their rights, so they don't get the right money. And it goes on and it goes on. It becomes a bad circle, until all this poverty, this needlessness, this sense of not stretching
Sure.
suddenly becomes a Barnavan case. That is always the foundation is that, because in a long term they have under communicating because they're afraid, they are proud, they're so many feelings, so many thoughts.
The
But
situation that you have described is against the stereotype, which is about the living in Norway. So if I tell my friends what you have told me, I suppose that they will not believe.
No.
Even me, when you are telling me this story now, is really hard to believe.
you know, I recently today I visit a family. I started a new case. 9 people living in one house with 3 bedrooms.
Oh.
4 children in one room, 3 in one.
Oh.
That is not the standard of Norway.
But
And
they were not Norwegian.
Right, they were
They are
French.
not Norwegians, yeah, of course.
And is it a secret where they are from?
Huh? I can't tell.
Yeah.
I can't tell because I can't identify them.
No.
But just consider it's a minority group. But also, you know, one of the biggest issue in Norway now is also that, for instance, people from Syria, people from Afghanistan, they are the new migrants in Norway, you know, and especially people from Syria, they have traumas, they have war, they have seen things that most of us haven't experienced, and thank God for that.
Extremely traumatized.
They come with a very heavy baggage mentally, and they come to Norway. They don't know anything about the system, and obviously system is made to, okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, and you go through the system for a year, you learn language, and then you're left alone. You know, it's like throwing a child out and not being able to walk.
No.
That's how, Edith, you are working in Caritas, you know this, in fact, that people need more care, people need more knowledge, people need more time.
Exactly.
And the time is not measured in time, it's measured in, okay, you went 500 timer, you went to have Norwegian, then you're done, you should be speaking Norwegian. And this is not, you have to understand that some people have a very critical life situation which they carry on with them. Yeah, and the brain is not able to take in information in the same manner as if the brain didn't have any trauma.
They're not that effective, because if you are struck by depression, you are like introvert, right? And you cannot like give out.
Exactly.
And that's why I think that our organizations, like migrant organizations and civil organizations and everything, we really have to think about being more warm-hearted, because we really have enough to live off. We don't know, at least I think in this way, I really don't need to show off a new car, whatever. So if you have some spare money, whatever, or spare time, to try to do something for the better, for the society, for the people. And in Norway, really nobody has to fight so much in order to survive, like in terms of getting food and so on, because this is provided in one or another way, right? And shelter by the officials and government. But people who do not know the language sufficiently enough, they don't know how and where to search for it, right? So that's why they are so vulnerable.
I think the most, maybe what we struggle here in Norway as a society is the individualism, you know? We always think about ourselves, me, and myself, instead of maybe taking care of somebody else. We all have time. So maybe time is an investment for others, you know? When you walk about and you see somebody, it doesn't take you more than 2 minutes to say, hi, how are you? And that would, in fact, change the world for that one who's sitting there, and life goes on. So time is something you could give for free.
Time is absolutely something you can actually give for free, like daily, right? And what would be the conclusion for those children who are suffering, really suffering more and more in those closed societies, small homes, on the poverty like level, and so on? Just try to get help and not be ashamed of like.
I would say that anybody struggling should just should just be honest about it. I know it's very difficult, believe me. It's easy to say be honest, but it is the most hardest thing you can do. But also maybe the best thing you can do for yourself is to take charge and not let it go for a long time. Because if you make a bad situation and you don't do anything about it, it is bound to explode, you know. And the explosion for your people,
Cooking and like feeling.
yeah, it's like a ticking bomb.
Yeah.
You have to do something with it, and as long as you don't do something about it, that bomb will go off. Yeah.
And at the end, please take a look at the familjebarnkontoret as well.
Yeah.
Not barnbarn, but this is like an office for the family only.
Exactly. Family counseling home.
Exactly.
There are family counseling services, and they provide excellent services. There are psychologists. They do understand. They offer you translator. You could all sometimes we also work, but we have to get an order for that. But please do use the family centers, because they are excellent services if you're struggling, if you have an issue in your marriage, if you have an issue as parent. There are lots of good things going on there.
And it's completely for free, free of charge.
It's for free, yeah.
That's a great.
Pick the phone and call.
Samina, we will be rounding up, and I'm so impressed about this discussion because we got really carried on, and I hope we meet again, right?
I'd like to come back again, and thank you for inviting me. It's been very nice talking to you.
Extremely proud of having you as our dear guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So much.
Bye-bye.
I'm very grateful.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.